So this is your Module 9 review. So we're going to run through some sample problems here. And the first set of problems, the directions, is just going to say state the number of real solutions. Okay. How we figure out how many number of real solutions I have, remember, is based off of the discriminant. Discriminant, right? That is b squared minus 4ac. That part of your quadratic formula lets us know how many real solutions I have. And just as a refresher, if your discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, is greater than 0, you have 2. If it's less than 0, you have 0. And if it's equal to 0, you have 1. Okay, so we're just figuring out the number, right, of your discriminant. And then based off of that, it will tell us how many real solutions I have. So your first step in any problem is to make one side equal to 0, which number 1 is. So I can go straight to figuring out what my A, my B, and my C are. My A value is always the coefficient of the variable squared, so that's -2. My B value will always be the coefficient of your X, which is -8. And my C value is my constant, which is also -8, right? So with that, I'm going to plug it into negative b squared minus 4ac. So b squared is -8 squared minus 4 times -2 times -8. B squared minus 4ac. So then if you just simplify it, -8 squared is 64. I have 3 negatives here, right? 1, 2, 3. I have 3 negatives. Oops. Yeah. 3 negatives will always make a negative. So I know it's a minus. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 8 is 64. So that equals 0. So if your discriminant is equal to 0, you have one real solution. And that's it. Okay. The discriminant tells us how many real solutions I have because the discriminant is a part of my quadratic formula, right? X equals -b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? And because my discriminant is underneath my square root, if I have a negative square root, I have 0 real solutions because there's no negative square root. If it's equal to 0, the square root of 0 is 0. So -b plus or minus 0 is the same number. So we only have one real solution there. And if it's a positive number, b squared minus 4ac, then the square root of a positive number is a real number. So I have -b plus that real number, or -b minus that real number divided by 2a. All right. So that's why I have the 1, 0, or 2. So in my second example, number 5, we have this. And I have to set one side equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 7, subtract 7. Whenever I'm subtracting something, and I have the x squared, the whole equation there, I want to try and line it up the best that I can. I'm going to line up the -7 with the 2 because they're like terms. All right. So that's just a easy way to organize my work. So we have that left over equals 0. So since it equals 0, I can go with my A, my B, and my C. So my A is -9, my B is -4, my C is -5. Okay. So again, it's B squared minus 4AC. So if I go B squared, that's -4 squared minus 4 times -9A times -5. My C value. So I have 16 minus, because I have 3 negatives. What's 4 times 9? Or what's 4 times 5? 20. 4 times 9 is 36, right? I'm going to stop right there. Because I know it's 16 minus a number bigger than 16, correct? So since it's a number bigger than 16, 16 minus that number is going to be a negative value, right? I don't care what the number is. All I care about if it's greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0. So since that's negative, I have 0 real roots or real solutions. And I'm done. Okay. In this case, I am going to subtract 6b and add 9. The reason why I'm subtracting 6b and I'm adding 9 instead of subtracting 10b squared to the other side is I need you guys to get used to leaving the b squared or the variable squared, that coefficient, as a positive number. Okay, so this 10b squared needs to be positive 10b squared. All right, I just want you guys to get used to that, because when we get into solving, it's going to be easier to factor in. It's going to be easier to use the quadratic formula or solving it in general. Okay, so since it equals 0, I can figure out my A, which is 10, my B, which is -6, my C, which is +9, right? So I have B squared minus 4AC, that's -6 squared minus 4 times 10 times 9. That would be 36 minus, what's 4 times 10? 40 times 9 is a bigger number, right? 36 minus 40 is still, that's a negative number, right? So if you just use your brain a little bit, you know it's going to be a negative number. So it's just 0 real solutions. Okay. All right. Number 16, or my fourth example, I am going to add 3m squared and add 10, add 3m squared and add 10. Notice that where I put the second 10. I put the second 10 here. That's above nothing because there is no common, there is no like term, right? So I'm going to organize it that way. So 0 equals 8m squared plus 7m plus 10. So now I can figure out my A, my B, my C. My A value is 8. B value is 7. C value is 10. So B squared minus 4AC, here I come. 7 squared minus 4 times 8 times 10. That's 49 minus, what is 8 times 10? 80, right? Which is greater than 49, which I'm subtracting it. So it's again a negative number. So it's 0 real solutions. All right. Cool. Now we're going to get into solving equations. Okay. So for this one, number 17, or my fifth example, I'm going to subtract 6n from both sides. I don't have a n on this side, so that's n squared minus 6n minus 16 equals 0. I can factor. I'm going to try and factor first. Remember factoring, you have two parentheses, and you're going to split up the n squared by putting n's on both inside both parentheses. Right? Okay. And I'm going to get two numbers that multiplies to negative 16. So get the product of negative 16, which is plus or minus 1, plus or minus 16, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 2, or plus or minus 6, right? And I want those two numbers to add up to negative 6. What are those two numbers? Oh, that's why. It's not 2 times 6, it's 2 times 8. Thank you. Yeah, 2 times 8 is 16, not 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. So it has to be 2 and negative 8, right? So plus 2 minus 8. So n plus 2 equals 0, or n minus 8 equals 0. So n equals negative 2, or n equals positive 8. And when we're solving for n. Okay. Next one is here. I'm going to subtract 7v squared minus 4 or plus 4v. Subtract 7v squared plus 4v. And then I'm going to have v squared plus 9v plus 20 equals 0. So v's on in both parentheses. Get the product of positive 20. And I want the sum equaling positive 9. Okay. So 20 is plus or minus 1, plus or minus 20, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 6, plus or minus 3, plus or minus 4. Not 6. Why am I always plus or minus 2, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 4, plus or minus 5. Yeah. Okay. So what are those two numbers that add up to 9?
4 and 5.
4 and 5. So plus 4 plus 5. So v plus 4 equals 0, or v plus 5 equals 0. So v equals -4 or v equals -5. When we're solving for v, right? Yeah. Cool. How many variables do you see here? One, right? Just the x squared. Whenever we see just one variable, we could just solve it using the square root. Okay, so I'm going to solve it right here. Subtract 8, subtract 8. So we have 6x squared equals 408. Divide by 6, divide by 6. So x squared equals 68. And then I'm going to square root it. Square root. When I square root it, x is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 68, right? But I do not want you guys to leave it like that because we can simplify that, I think. 68, what times what is 68? If it's difficult for you guys to get it right off the bat, 2. 2 times 34. How about 34? 2 and 17, right? And 17 is a prime number, so you're good. So here I am going to take out a 2 because there's a pair of 2's. What's left over inside is this 17 here. Plus or minus equals x. Cool? Okay, and that is 35. Moving on to my next example is that. So I'm going to add 11 on both sides. When I add 11, it's going to be b squared plus b minus 12 equals 0. Right off the bat, do you guys know the numbers that we can factor? Product of -12, sum of 1. 3 and 4, right? 3 and, or -3 and +4. Right, once you guys get those numbers, notice that she said 3 and 4. 3 and 4 doesn't work because 3 times 4 is +12, correct? And 3 plus 4 is 7, right? That's not 1 or not -12. Right, but she said it because she knows that those two numbers are the numbers that we're going to deal with. And in the plus and minus, we can figure it out later. That makes sense? Yeah. So get the numbers first, 3 and 4, and then play around with it. If it's -4, it's going to be -1, so it has to be -3 to get +1. So that's -3 plus 4, which is +1, so that's -3 plus 4. So b minus 3 equals 0, or b plus 4 equals 0. So b equals 3, or b equals -4. And we are good. Okay? Actually, I'll leave it up here for a little bit. Next one, we have this. It looks crazy, but I promise you, once we get one side equal to 0, it's going to look a lot better. Notice where I put the 5x in red, right underneath the negative 5x, right? So line up your terms that way. So that's 4x squared minus 144, and these two guys cancel out, equals 0. So I can just solve it using taking the square root, right? So I'm going to add 144 to both sides. And that's 4x squared equals 144. Divide by 4, divide by 4 to get x squared equals, what is that? 36? Yeah. And then we're going to square root it, square root, square root. So x is equal to plus or minus square root of 36 is 6. Okay. So your x value is positive 6 and negative 6, right? Where is your axis of symmetry? 0. X equals 0. Right? What is your vertex? Think about that. Okay? Look at that. Look at these questions and try to come up with the axis of symmetry and try to come up with the vertex. All right? You're not going to need it. You're going to want it. Yeah. You can still get 100% on the test without it. But you're still going to want it. So I'm going to subtract 8 on this one. So 6b squared plus 8b minus 9 equals 0. Do you guys remember how to factor with the coefficient here? Yeah. So remember, we're going to be playing around with these numbers. And it's going to be 6 and 1, the product of 6. Or 2 and 3. Negative 9, the product of negative 9 is going to be plus or minus 1, plus or minus 9, or plus or minus 3, and plus or minus 3, right? And throughout all of that, I want a sum of 8. So once you guys go through that process of trying to factor it out, you notice that it doesn't work. It's okay if it doesn't work, because I always have my x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay. So my a value here is 6. My b value here is 8. And my c value here is negative 9. So if I plug those values in, it would be negative 8 plus or minus square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 9 all over 2 times 6. So then that one would be x equals negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 64 plus, because I have two negatives, 4 times 6 times 9, that's 216. all over 12. So x is going to equal negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 280 all over 12. And I'm going to take some time to factor out 280. That's 28 and 10. Okay, that's the easiest way to do it, right? 28 is 7 and 4. 10 is 2 and 5. 4 is 2 and 2. So I can take out a 2. Correct? I can take out this 2. And then the 2, 7, and 10, they don't have a pair, right? There's no pairs for these numbers. So you multiply them out. That's 10 times 7, which is 70. And you just leave it in the square root. Okay? Plus or minus negative 8 divided by 12, which is, what can I take out from the top? A 2? Right? I can take out a 2, which will leave me with negative 4 plus or minus square root of 70 over 12. The reason why I do that is now I can cancel out the 2 with the 12, make 1 and 6. So your answer here is going to be negative 4 plus or minus square root of 70 over 6. Okay. So this one, it says to find the value that completes the square, then rewrite it as a perfect square. Remember the steps. We are going to get the value of this, right? We're going to get that middle coefficient along with the sign. So that's positive 14. And we're going to play bop it with it, right? Half it. Square it. Okay. So that's 14 divided by 2, that's 7. 7 squared is 49. So I'm going to add 49. Right? And in the perfect square, plus 7. Or you can take your time and factor it out. Okay, once you half it and square it, you can take your time here and try to factor this out. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Whatever value this is, that value just goes in there. All right. Number 60, we have this. So I'm going to take this coefficient, negative 7, half it, square it. Okay. So that is just negative 7 over 2 squared, which is positive 49 over 4. So after you halved it and you squared it, so that's R. And since this value is being squared, I'm going to plop it here with that squared. And that's it. Okay, that is your review for Module 9. All right. Okay, that is the review. Thank you.